Hi everyone, this week you all are reading chapters 3 and 4. Chapter 4 focuses on how to enter data into SPSS and the various menu options in SPSS. Part of your homework, you will have to input some sample data, and so chapter 4 does a really good job of going step by step showing you how to do this, but sometimes it's helpful to have a video actually to watch in addition to that. So I'm just going to give you a sample based on the data that's given to you in chapter 4. So I'm looking at page 112, table 4.1. And so here I am in SPSS. I just opened up a new window of SPSS. There's no data in this particular window. I'm in my data editor. There's the data view and then the variable view. Variable view is the window that I'm going to use to enter in my data, to enter in the names of the different variables, I should say. And then once I enter in those names of the variables, then I can move to data view to actually input the data. So for variable view, the very first variable that I'm going to work with in table 4.1 are our names. And so I'm going to click on this very first cell. I'm going to type the word in name. So you'll eventually notice that in this particular column, name is usually an abbreviated form of the actual variable, because sometimes our variables are long and sometimes you may have to use abbreviations. Sometimes your variable may have multiple words that go with it, but you'll have to shorten it. So think of a name, a short name that you can use that will help you remember. Sometimes the names are short, so for this one I can just leave it as name. The very next thing, it's going to ask what type of variable is this? Is this numeric, or is it am I trying to enter in a date? Am I trying to enter in a dollar amount, etc.? If it is only words, so this has nothing to do with numbers, it's just the names of people, I'm going to click on string. And then characters will be the actual how many, the maximum number of characters I can put in that variable. So I'll go ahead and click OK. I'll just leave it at 8. Decimals, there are no decimals since this is, the type is string. I'm just using letters here. Now, one thing you want to do is a label. You always want to label your variable, meaning that there are many times where you will input data in SPSS and then you may walk away from it for months at a time. And so label will give you a good description of exactly what that variable is. So if it's been some time since you've looked at your data set, this will give you a good description of it, and so you'll remember, okay, that's what that variable is. So for label, I'm going to put participant's first name. And what's nice about label, I'm not sure how long, how much text you can put in it, but I have seen, and I've even done this before, where I've put an entire survey question item in it. And you'll see that whenever we're, the more that we play with our team data, you'll see some of those questions, those survey questions, you'll see the entire question in it, because what's nice is that it opens up, so you can really see the entire label. So after that, we don't have any values with our string data. We don't have any missing. We can go ahead and move to measure. Measure will be, is this variable ordinal data, or is it nominal, or is it, so ordinal, is there a certain order to this data set, or is it nominal? Nominal is it's just regular categorical data. So that's what this one is. So I selected nominal, And so now that my data, now that my variable is in SPSS, I've created my name variable. I can now move to data view. The name of my variable will be here, which is called name. And now I can enter in data. Ben, Martin, Andy, etc. So my second variable is birth date. And so I'm going to type the word birth, downward score, or underscore. Is it underscore maybe? And then date. For this name column, remember it is just an abbreviated version of it, but it's also, you can't put any spaces in between words. So if there are multiple words that you want to put, you'll have to put this little underscore here. Now this is going to actually be numeric because we are putting in numbers here. This gives me the width, how long, how many numbers I would like to put in it. Actually, it's more than just numbers. I can actually choose date for this. So sorry about that. I can actually go in here, select date, and I can select the format that I want my date to be in. So I'm just going to select this one here. The width, how many numbers I want it to be. Because I've selected date, it automatically puts 0 decimals for me. And for my label, I'm going to label it date of birth. And no values here, no missing data. For measure, I will put scale because I am using numbers here. So now I can go back into data view and I can add these birth dates. Whoops. I'm too busy typing and I'm not looking up. So 05, 24, 19, 69, and then my next one is 06, 21, 1973. Okay, and now I can move on to my next variable. So our next variable is going to be named group, and this is this is an example of a categorical variable because we can identify each individual, we can place each individual in a certain category. So for instance, this goes back to earlier, well, last week in the semester, whenever we were talking about categorical variables, maybe by gender, you can have different categories, or by religion, by education, etc. Looking at this sample data here, we will use the name group, and then the type would be, since we're using numbers to identify the different groups, we're going to leave it as numeric. Now we do not need any decimals here because our group categories, we only have 2 categories. We have lecturer and student, and there's no need for any decimals. For our label, we're going to identify this variable as, is the person a lecturer or a student? Now this is where we will use values for this. So this is, when you use the column values, this is whenever you have a categorical variable that has various groups. So we have lecturer and student. We can label those who are lecturers as 1 and students as 2. So we want to give the value of 1. and this is going to be our lecturer. We can click add, and then 2 will be student, add, okay. No missing data. Our measure here would be nominal. And now we can go, here is our data view. So now we can we can actually place them in the right category. So instead of typing out lecturer or student, we can place them in their correct groups. So our first 3 are all lecturers. Ben, Martin, and Andy are all lecturers. So the next 4 variables in this particular table are all continuous variables. They're all numeric. So you would input the data very similarly. So for our next one, we will label it. We will the name for this variable will be friends. This will be numeric. We'll just use the default. We don't need any decimals for this. For the label, we will say number of friends. Since it is continuous, we don't have values here to place them in groups. We're going to place the measure as scale. And then we can input our data for friends. 5, 2, and 0. So the next 3 are also continuous variables. It's going to be very similar. And so this is, I think you've had, I've given you an example of the different types of variables, how to input them into the data set. And so I think hopefully you feel a little more comfortable inputting the data. And I hope you guys have success with your homework this week. If you need anything, please contact me.